Good evening. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Dr. Brian Henning. I'm a professor of philosophy and environmental studies here at Gonzaga University, where I also have the pleasure of serving as the director of the Gonzaga Institute for Climate, Water, and the Environment. And it's my pleasure to serve as your moderator for this, the 7th annual Spokane Candidates Climate Change Forum. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us here in the Globe Room or at home via streaming. I'd like to give a special shout out to our friends at Rockwood Retirement Community who are doing a watch party tonight up on South Hill. Hi everybody at Rockwood. As with previous years, this event is being both live streamed and recorded, and it'll be available on our YouTube channel after this event. To welcome you here to Gonzaga University, it's my pleasure to introduce our provost, Dr. Mia Bertagnolli. Please welcome her to the stage. Dr. Bertagnolli is a graduate of Gonzaga who went on to earn her PhD in biology and from the University of Utah. And we're really fortunate that she decided to come back to her alma mater, where she served in many positions, most recently as our interim provost. And we're so grateful to have her here tonight. Thank you, Dr. Bertagnolli.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian. So as Brian said, my name is Mia Bertagnolli. I'm the interim provost at Gonzaga University. And on behalf of the university, I extend a very warm welcome to all of the candidates, the students, the faculty, the staff, and community members who are joining in this event. And I'd really like to give a special thank you and shout out to Dr. Henning and his team for hosting this great event for so many years. Yes, that deserves some applause. Thank you. And for all of their work, which they do so beautifully well and is so important. At Gonzaga, civic engagement and thoughtful dialogue remain at the heart of our mission as a university. In a time when respectful conversation and collaborative problem solving are more important than ever, we continue to uphold the values of Ignatian education, honoring diverse perspectives, fostering understanding, and working together for the common good. Since 2019, the Spokane Candidates Climate Change Forum has exemplified these values in action. We are proud to host this event again in 2025, providing a space for meaningful exchange on the urgent challenges that are facing our communities and our planet. Thank you all for being here tonight and for your dedication to democratic participation and informed civic discourse. Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. Sets a great tone tonight. The world is fraught, and it's really wonderful to have us all here celebrating our democracy and our participation in it. So before we get started, I wanted to mention that this event, as many of you know, is part of a regular series of events that we host every semester called the For Our Common Home series. And you can find out more information if you go to gonzaga.edu/climate events. You can sign up to be notified of them, and as you can see on the screen, we have quite a few great events still coming up this semester. So very shortly, we're co-sponsoring with our colleagues in the theater department a set of plays about climate change during Fall Family Weekend. So you can buy tickets to go to that at the Magnuson Theater. Then we're hosting a free screening of a documentary called Cooked: Survival by Zip Code, related to extreme heat. And so we'd encourage you to come to the Hemmingson Auditorium for that free screening. One of our colleagues, Dr. Shimabuku from the Civil Engineering Department, will be sharing with us some of his research related to safeguarding our drinking water in an era of megafires. And then we'll round out this semester with a wonderful Zoom event with an organizer from Louisiana who works in Cancer Alley in the South on environmental justice. It should be a really powerful opportunity to hear from a wonderful activist in an important area of the world. So go to our website, gonzaga.edu/climate events, and learn about how you can register for those events and be notified of future ones. We also have now a pretty large library of past events. Again, so if you go to our YouTube channel, you can learn more about all of those, including all of the past candidate forums that we've hosted. As you might guess, hosting events such as this and doing work in the community to advance climate literacy and climate resilience takes considerable resources. So if you have the means, I would ask that you consider sharing some of them with us. It's a challenging time to be doing this work, but at the same time, there's nothing more important than doing this work right now. That's also true of the wonderful partners who are here tonight, who are taking their time volunteering to come and share with you. some of the work that they do for our community. And so I'd encourage you afterwards to make sure to come and visit them, get on their email list, send them a little bit of money so that you can help them to also pursue their missions on behalf of our community. I'd also like to thank the number of people who make this possible. As you can imagine, this doesn't just happen overnight. There's a wonderful army of folks that work for us here at the Climate Institute. And I'd like to particularly thank Caitlin Carroll, our program assistant, who's at the registration table. Hi, Caitlin. Who's going to turn around? Thank you, Caitlin, for all of the work you do to organize these events. We also have a wonderful Nick in the background making sure that our live stream works. Patrick from Guest Services, Ella and Eva who help to advertise our events, as well as the rest of the wonderful team here at the Gonzaga Climate Institute. As I mentioned, this event is co-sponsored, as it regularly is, by wonderful organizations, many of whom are here tonight. They do amazing work in and for our community, and so please consider supporting them, as I mentioned. Before jumping into and inviting our moderators and our candidates up, I wanted to also remind us that although climate change is sometimes presented as a really challenging political issue, and in some ways, it is, that's not really borne out by the polling. It's not nearly as controversial in public perception as it's presented to us in talking heads on various news programs. The Yale Center for Climate Communication for quite a number of years has been tracking public perception about climate change, and they break the country into what they call the 6 Americas. And rather than just sort of for and against, I rather like this more nuanced presentation. There are some people who are rather concerned about it. There are some people who are not. But that 72% of the population are either alarmed, concerned, or cautious is a significant percentage of our population. That's, I mean, to think of 72% of people agreeing on anything is hard to believe. And there are people who are doubtful and dismissive. They're a minority, but a relatively small minority, a significant one. The point of this event is to create the opportunity not to debate whether it's happening, but what would elected officials support or not support if they were brought into office to represent us. There are conservative ideas for how we might act, and there are more progressive ideas for how we might act. And so the question isn't whether, but how. Is it a market-based approach? Is it something that uses large government programs? Is it individual citizens taking actions? There are lots of different ways this might happen that might be more or less consistent with different political parties, and we can thoughtfully agree and disagree on those things. And so let's not present it as a for, against, as an either or, but rather a really complicated topic that deserves our thoughtful attention about how, as a community, we can go about addressing it. Given that this is an event, a topic that can bring about strong emotions, and we see in too many instances in other venues that public discourse breaks down, we've been really fortunate that so far that has never happened in this event, and it's always been a thoughtful space for community members to hear from candidates their views without being booed, without being even cheered. And so we've developed these rules of engagement, and they've worked rather well for us over the years, but it really depends on all of us agreeing to follow them to create a welcoming space for genuine dialogue. So if you would, please don't boo, but also don't clap, don't cheer. But we don't want it to be just completely passive, and we don't want you to sort of like build up and want to explode. So to give you an outlet, as you saw in your chairs, you've got red and green cards. And so if you like what's being said, you could hold up the green card, and if you're not agreeing with what's being said, you can hold up the red card, kind of feels a little bit like soccer-ish, a little bit with referees. So if you don't have any of those sheets and you'd like them, just raise your hand and a volunteer will come and bring you some of those now. So Your continued attendance here tonight is, I'm taking you as a, if you can't agree to these rules, now would be a good time to gracefully depart. If you agree with these rules, if you would practice by holding up the green sheet just to see if we can get this down right. Well done. I don't see any reds. That's good. Okay. Thank you very much. The forum uses a format that's used in many presidential elections that will have two student moderators. They will ask questions to the candidates, but each of the candidates, after they come up, will have an initial period of 2 minutes to be able to provide an opening statement. After the opening statements, the students will then ask them a question. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to provide an answer to that question, and then at the moderator's discretion, they could have up to an additional minute for redirection if necessary to get to the bottom of the question. So again, it's 2 minutes opening, 2 minute initial responses up to 90 seconds for additional redirection. So, in keeping with our tradition, the forum is co-moderated by two Gonzaga students, and this year we have with us Joe Barnowski and Claire Cooney. And since we have not yet started with the questions, let's suspend our rules of engagement for a second, and please join me in giving a warm welcome to Joe and Claire as they join me on the stage. I just realized Caitlin was in the front already. Hi, Caitlin. Sorry about that. Hi, Carly. So Joe is a Gonzaga senior studying environmental studies with a minor in journalism. Originally from Chicago, Illinois, he enjoys working with the Climate Institute's Climate Literacy Project to help young people understand about climate change here in Spokane. Thanks for joining us tonight, Joe. And our other moderator is Claire. She is a senior majoring in environmental studies with minors in sustainable business and leadership studies. Originally from Portland, Oregon, she enjoys working with the Institute's Climate Resilience Project to build resilience on the impacts of our rapidly changing climate. Thanks for joining us, Claire. If you'd like to learn more about those two projects, there are posters in the back at the end that you can learn more about the projects, and maybe Joe and Claire might even go back and answer questions about the work that they do in the community. So this year, the forum will focus on races for city council. For the first time in the forum's history, we're able to feature candidates both from the city council, not only for the city of Spokane, but also Spokane Valley, which I'm really excited about. I'm not sure how well you can see this map, but in the dark green in the middle is the city of Spokane, and to its right on the screen is the city of Spokane Valley in the slightly darker color there. They have combined populations, if you take the two cities together, about 440,000 people, a considerable number of people, largest city between Minneapolis and Seattle, a considerable number of people to be represented here in our region in the inland Northwest. The city of Spokane comprises its city council in terms of 6 positions and plus the president. Those 6 positions are 2 in each of 3 districts. And so on the screen, you can see those 3 districts for the city of Spokane. Those are roughly division is sort of the north-south sort of division between the city, and to its east and north of the river is District 1, South Hill, and out in Latah, and the airport is District 2, and then to the west and north of downtown is District 3. In Spokane Valley, they're all at-large positions rather than geographically designated. And so this year, they have a number of candidates on the ballot. We received no response from Pam Halley and Catherine Nelson for position 5, or Brad Hone and Laura Padnett for position 7. But we did receive one polite note of conflict indicating from Benwick that he wasn't able to join us. For the city of Spokane, we invited repeatedly Jonathan Bingle and Alejandro Barrientos, but neither of them replied one way or the other to our repeated invitations from emails, phone calls, texts, We haven't done skywriting yet, but we're not opposed to it. And we'll leave it to you to decide how to interpret someone's decision not to participate. That's a busy agenda, but also hopefully an important topic. However, I am delighted to note that we do have with us a total of 6 candidates, as you can see on your screen, for local office. 4 of the 6 candidates for Spokane City Council and 2 candidates for Spokane Valley City Council. So candidates, as I call your name, please join me at the stage. And audience, again, we have not yet fully engaged our rules, and so please join me in welcoming them with warm applause. Alphabetically by district, I'd like to welcome to the stage Sarah Dixit, Spokane City Council District 1. Kate Tellis, Spokane City Council District 2. Christopher Savage, Spokane City Council District 3. Zach Sapone, Spokane City Council District 3. Welcome. Thanks, Zach. Mike Kelly, Spokane Valley Council position number 1. Welcome. Good to see you again. Hey, thanks for being here. And finally, Christopher Pokel for our Spokane Valley Council, position number 1. Did I pronounce it right? Is it Pokel? Pokel, okay. I didn't get to meet Mr. Pokel before, and I apologize. I'll get his name right, so it's Pokel. Welcome. We're so delighted to have all of you here. We know it really is a very busy schedule, and so taking time to be here really means a lot to Gonzaga, to our students, and to our community to talk about climate change with you tonight. So as a reminder, Joe or Claire will pose a question. You'll have a little bit of time to respond. Our timekeeper is Caitlin right here in the front, who will be providing signs indicating how much time you have left. Including the stop sign, and if necessary, I'll jump in. And the goal is just to give time for everybody to be able to share their views, so please be attentive to Caitlin up here in the front. And with that, let's consider our rules of engagement. Engaged, use the red and green signs from now on to indicate your pleasure or displeasure. Please don't cheer or boo or clap or otherwise make noise. And with that, it's my happy pleasure to turn it over to Claire to be able to begin the questions.
Thank you. I believe we're starting with opening statements. Yeah.
Used to this. They work with me. Let us start with opening statements, and let's go left to right. And so, Caitlin, I believe we said 2 minutes for each of those openings, and so we'll go left to right. Please.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Institute and for the students for putting this event on. This topic is really important, so I'm glad we're taking time to talk about it. I'm Sarah Dixit, and I'm running for Spokane City Council District 1, which is Northeast Spokane, as you saw earlier, and a lot of downtown, which includes Gonzaga. I'm running to represent the beautiful and unique communities that exist in our district. My campaign is centered on 3 primary values: accountability, belonging, and community, which is as easy as ABC. Try to make it easy for folks. These values are overarching because we know that all these issues are really intersectional, which includes climate change. So accountability, because many candidates, politicians, and leaders make a lot of promises, especially on the campaign trail, and it's really important to make sure they follow through. So folks like you, leaders, activists, advocates, have to ensure that people are more than just empty promises. So when I'm elected, I hope you do that for me. Belonging, because if our motto for the city is "In Spokane, we all belong," then that means we need to have the infrastructure and sustainability to grow in a way that does include everyone. And community, because each area of our city experiences climate change differently. So Northeast Spokane is one of those areas where people are disproportionately impacted. So that's why it's particularly important for the race that I'm running in. Climate change is a critical issue that needs attention now. Oftentimes, older generations will pass the buck to the younger generations, which definitely needs to stop because all of us have a role to play in mitigating climate change and building resiliency as a community. So I'm thankful to the Institute for hosting this event for the past 7 years. and to show that every single level of government does have a part to play in making sure that our region is climate resilient.
Good job. That was perfect.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate Tellis, and I'm running for Spokane City Council District 2. I have the wonky south part of the district that goes all the way out to the airport, from East Central to all the South Hill, Latah Valley, all the way out to the airport. I often talk about how I'm a former prosecutor who worked on domestic violence felonies and how I've worked with homeless families with young children. But I think for purposes of today, I want to highlight something that's a little bit more personal. I am the daughter, the very proud daughter, of the longest serving Forest Service Ranger in the lower 48. I grew up spending my childhood in rural Montana, 3 hours away from here, and climate and protecting our resources is near and dear to my heart. I'm running, obviously, on more than just sustainability, but I'm running on three main issues. I'm running on safety. We need to make sure that our community is safe, and I think we need to address different models post-COVID to deal with addiction and mental health crises that we're seeing. I also think we are in the midst of a housing affordability crisis, specifically at the entry level, and we need to do more to incentivize developers to address this, and potentially work into the tax code for different incentives. And then most specifically and most on topic for tonight, I am running to create a sustainable Spokane. These are tough issues. I am most definitely in the alarmed circle, and it's partially why I'm running. We need to do something about this, and I do not take it lightly, and these will be hard conversations, but if we get everyone into the same room together, I think we can have solutions. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Christopher Savage. I'm running for Spokane City Council District 3. It's the one on the far right, stage left over there, maybe. So just wanted to let you know that I am a lifelong resident here of Spokane, and it has given me a great lesson of living here in Spokane. Ever since I was in high school, I've been a part of this environmental crusade that's supposed to be happening with the policies that are made. I've helped out with fire abatement work in our Riverside State Park. I've started monarch rehabilitation programs with California universities down in for our suburban neighbors, as well as trying to create more pollinator populations by planting milkweed across Spokane. I know how important this is to make sure that we are good stewards of our environment, because this has been implanted in me ever since I've been young. So we need to make sure that we are making competent policies that are coming out of City Hall that aren't wasting resources, but is making sure that we are using the finite amount of resources that we have for the right reasons. We only have one shot at this, we only have one Earth, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of it in the right manner. So please make sure that you are doing everything you can. I think it's a personal responsibility to make sure that we are doing everything we can to help out our environment. We can't rely on the government. We have to take this into our own hands and make sure that we, the people, are making sure that we are doing the best for the environment.
Switching mics. Hi, I'm Zach Sapone. I'm born and raised here in Spokane, and I'm a teacher at North Central High School, the same school I graduated from, and the same school my grandpa graduated from. And I'm running for office, or for re-election, for one simple reason, and that's because I believe everyone deserves a fair shot. That means that we need to have affordability and address our housing and homelessness, address our safe streets and our safe neighborhoods, and build a better future for our community, and that's especially important for 21st century infrastructure. Since being on council, I've understood and been impacted by climate. I think that's important, that we need to start recognizing that climate change is impacting us today. 2 years ago, my family in Medical Lake lost our home, one of my childhood homes, and so I know the threat and fear of that impact to our community today. And I've held that value in office before losing our home, and voted to support issues in our community around climate and resiliency. Since being in office, I voted and supported changing our water rates to make it so that we are conserving our water, passing ordinances that require us to water outside of the hottest part of the day, and not every day. I voted and supported expanding our tree canopy in Spokane, and have gone and planted our trees. And I've been extremely concerned about the federal policies that are taking away the resources that we hear locally and the rollback that the direction of our country is going. And so we need local leaders that are going to stand up and continue to fight for building a more resilient city, one that conserves our resources and builds for the impact of our future. And so that's why I'm running for re-election, and I'm excited to talk more about the specific issues. Thank you.
My name's Chris Pokel. I live in Spokane Valley. I've lived there pretty much my whole life. I am kind of a nerd, a data person, right? So in my day job, I'm a software engineer. I manage a team of software engineers for a local company. I got my bachelor's of software development. Then I went and got my MBA after that. My wife, Rebecca, she actually graduated from Gonzaga with her degree in civil engineering. So we're kind of a family of nerds. We're data people, and to me, the data here is clear. I like to listen to experts, and when the experts tell me that the rate that the climate is warming is faster than it's ever been, I tend to listen to those people. Looking at the data, it makes sense to me. So. As far as the climate goes, I think I would put myself in that concern bubble on that graph. But yeah, I'm just a concerned citizen that thought, if I think that the valley should be doing certain things or going a certain direction, who better to do those things than me? I've lived there my whole life, and I thought, it's really time for me to give back to the community and spend some of my time trying to make it a better place and keep it the place that, I loved growing up in. So, again, Chris Pokel, Spokane Valley City Council, position number 1. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, Mike Kelly, Spokane Valley, also running for position number 1. So we have 2 great communities, Spokane Valley and Spokane. And while they differ in demographics and probably in politics, we do share some very common priorities. And one of those, of course, is climate. We all want clean water. We all want clean air. And those are things that are important not only for ourselves and our family, but just as good stewards of this planet. We've been given dominion over the earth. But as with all privileges, it comes with responsibility. And so we, both individually and collectively, need to make sure that we are doing our best. I grew up visiting my grandparents' farm in the Midwest and had a love for the country and for preserving nature. I was a Boy Scout and used to hike through the forests of Oregon and enjoyed that a great deal. And I've been, I guess, sort of an environmentalist my entire life. I can remember when I was a small child, we would stack our newspapers in the corner of the kitchen and recycle them. We'd separate out our glass and our tin cans long before it became something that was common. And so just developed kind of I guess, a disdain for waste of all kinds. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come here and have this discussion because it is something that's important. It impacts all of us, and it does take what I think was referred to earlier as civil discourse to come up with proper solutions that make sense and are effective. And so I am excited to be a part of this process. And as a member of the City Council, we will continue to make these issues a priority. Thank you.
Thank you so much, candidates. Really appreciate it. Good job, audience. We're doing great here. This is perfect. Thank you all. I think now we're ready for our first questions. Thanks, Claire, for keeping us on track.
Hello, candidates. Thank you for being with us tonight. Here at the Institute, we support regional efforts to help our community understand and respond to our rapidly changing climate. As a climate project assistant, part of my work focuses particularly on helping our community address the dangers caused by more frequent heat waves and periods of intense wildfire smoke. Just 4 years ago, more than 19 people died and over 300 people went to the hospital with heat-related illness during the 2021 heat dome. Being unprepared can be deadly. Candidates, what specific actions do you think Spokane or Spokane Valley should take to help our communities be more resilient to our changing climate? For instance, would you support the strengthening of community facilities to serve as resilience hubs, places like libraries, schools, and community centers where people can seek refuge from extreme heat or smoke? If so, would you support funding for these facilities to serve this role? If not, why not? Candidate Tellis, first to you. Again, the question is, if elected to City Council, what specific efforts would you support to advance community resilience to climate-related hazards such as extreme heat and wildfire smoke? And would you support funding for climate resilience efforts such as community resilience hubs? You have 2 minutes.
Absolutely. I think the work you're doing around climate resilience hubs is very important work. I know that we've recently expanded the model to include a greater portion of Spokane. So right now, or beforehand, it was kind of at libraries and I think the Louvre Carousel. And now what we're trying to do, really as an equity measure, Sarah Dixit talked about this, District 1 is seeing probably the most adverse effects to climate change. So we really need to make sure that people have access to these cooling shelters wherever they can. I do know that you lost your funding for Trump recently with EPA cuts, and I'm not on City Council yet, so I can't talk about budgets specifically. I know we're all in a budget crunch, but in my opinion, dealing with climate issues and our resilience and our ability to survive on this planet is paramount to almost anything else.
Just to allow you to expand on that, so we just recently learned that the city has a $13 million additional deficit on top of what I think was $25 million when you started the budget. So if someone just said, we can't afford it, what would you say?
Try again. I think. I mean, I don't mean to be flippant. I think that in budget crises, we have to be creative. We have to work together as institutes of higher education. We have to work together with government. We have to work together with nonprofits. We have to work together with faith-based communities to meet the needs of our people. And I would be a huge advocate for more collaboration along those lines.
Thank you, Candidate Tellis. Candidate Savage, same question to you. I'm happy to repeat it if you'd like. Okay. If elected to City Council, what specific efforts would you support to advance community resilience to climate-related hazards such as extreme heat and wildfire smoke? And would you support funding for community resilience efforts such as community resilience hubs?
So first, what we really need to do is a big thing that we can do is by planting trees. By planting trees, we can actually create better outdoor environments that are going to be cooler for our residents. There's a lot of people that go downtown that it's pretty much just a desert down there with all the concrete and all the things down there. So we need to make sure we are planting more trees downtown and throughout our neighborhoods that actually need it, because there's a lot more people who don't have the money for it, a lower income, that really need to have those trees planted. That's why I support the tree canopy program that Spokane puts out. They have an ambitious goal of trying to increase our tree canopy by 30% by 2030. I think that is essential on trying to make sure we address this in the correct manner. Now, to touch upon a subject that was just brought up, the city's in a $13 million deficit. It is going to be very, very difficult to try to open these shelters and inclement weather areas because we just don't have the money right now. And honestly, right now, we also just didn't activate them as currently as we could have done this year. We had several hot days in this summer that really didn't activate the inclement weathers, and we need to do a better job if we are going to activate that. But right now, we're going to have to find really creative ways if we really want to make sure that we open up these shelters in the right manner at the right time, by finding it in ways that are across, and it's going to be very difficult because if you looked at the budget deficit right now, it is not good. So it is going to be very difficult to try to figure out how to make sure we get these shelters open when we don't have the money there. So I would try to support it if we do, but it is just on the low list of priorities of what we're trying to do in the city, because we don't want to have a reduction in services for your garbage, utilities, water, everything else. So right now, it would be very hard and difficult to try to do that.
Just to follow up, if you would less inclined on hubs, but it sounds like maybe for trees, if the funding from the federal government didn't continue to come through for the tree work, or we're not meeting our targets to reach the canopy coverage we want to, are you saying you would prioritize that over other things, even in the midst of a difficult deficit, or would you also cut tree plantings as well?
I would probably cut tree plantings as well because I don't want a reduction in services for our fire, our EMS, our police, our utilities, our garbage, because we definitely need those services constantly going for our city to function.
Thanks.
Thank you, Candidate Savage. Candidate Zapone, same question to you. What specific efforts would you support to advance community resilience to climate-related hazards, and would you specifically support funding for resilience hubs?
Yeah, thanks. Last year, thanks to voters, we did fund an increase of 0.1% sales tax towards community safety. I was supportive of the mayor's proposal of including resiliency as part of that because it's important to talk about our safety as building a resilient city. The reality of the budget is that we are in really difficult times and the city is limited by revenue streams. 90% of the city's budget goes to salaries. And so I'm supportive of looking at efficiencies to make the city more efficient, to try to fund things such as this. I'm supportive of resiliency hubs and was supportive of that before. We're in a really hard situation. I think that people need to recognize that we're looking at stark choices across our community that we're going to hear more about, such as reduction of library hours and other things. And so these are part of the conversation we need to have about what are our priorities. I think building for a resilient future is important, but there are other strategies that we can do besides that too. And so I know working with some of our community members here, we passed an ordinance that allows people to stay in their homes and requires landlords to allow them to have air conditioning units in their homes. And so those are things that we can do that don't cost money, that allow people to be at their homes and cooler when there's hot weather to address those concerns. Additionally, we do need to go and advocate for increased revenue and taxing the wealthiest in Washington state so that we can afford things like this. Instead of fighting for pennies on the dollar, we need to fundamentally change our revenue structure, and I've been a strong advocate from that, our state legislative policies, and we need to keep fighting for that from the local level up so that we can afford these things and support our community members here. Instead of arguing and fighting about pennies, we need to make a fundamental shift in our revenue here. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Zapone. Candidate Pokel, same question to you. What specific efforts would you support to advance community resilience to climate-related hazards? And would you specifically support funding for resilience hubs in Spokane Valley?
Yeah, I think, perfect pronunciation on the last name, by the way, that was excellent. I think that, funding resiliency hubs, absolutely critical. That being said, the city of Spokane Valley faces some of the same problems that the city of Spokane does. Finding that money is difficult. We will have to have conversations about where do we find it, what do we cut, how do we move dollars from this pot to cover those things. But resiliency is important, and coming up with some clever solutions through regional partnerships, I think is going to be really key for the valley. So continuing to look in those things and building those relationships with other jurisdictions and other agencies like the local fire departments and the county to try and see, well, what can we do? How can we pool our resources to make things better for everybody?
Thank you, Candidate Pokel. Candidate Kelly, same question to you. I'm happy to repeat it if you'd like.
I think I have the gist of it, thank you. So speaking of gists, I think we all understand that we can have anything that we want as long as we're willing to pay for it. Unfortunately, traditionally we've had limited resources, but that doesn't mean that there isn't anything that we can do. So some of the alternatives to just outright funding by the city would include partnerships with community organizations, whether it be the schools, whether it be the churches, whether it be other organizations that are in a position to help in times of emergencies. I lost my train of thought here. There was something else I was going to bring up. But it really just comes down to us wanting to make sure that we focus on solutions. The cities, even if they don't have the money, they can certainly foster those discussions, and they can have people who outreach. I think it's an individual responsibility to be prepared for emergencies, but there are some emergencies that are overwhelming, and you can't necessarily deal with them yourself. So the community does need to come together and to be able to provide resources. So cooling stations, places to get away from smoke if that's necessary, We don't really have a problem with floods or no earthquakes yet, but we should be prepared for that. We should be thinking about those things and having those conversations. And again, I think the community leaders should foster those discussions and raise the awareness in the community so people can be prepared themselves to the degree they can, and that alternatives are available should we have something more major to deal with.
Kelly, just to clarify, the convening role that cities can play is really important, though, bringing people together to talk about those things. My understanding is that there isn't necessarily someone at the city of Spokane Valley right now who would help to lead those conversations. Would you support having someone whose part of their job duties was to actually coordinate libraries and churches and community organizations to do that work?
Well, absolutely. You know, I mean, again, you have to work within the budget constraints. To have someone dedicated to that might not be realistic, but you can have someone who would, again, bring together volunteers. We could create a commission or a board that is specifically tasked with having preparedness. They can partner with the regional and Spokane, the city of Spokane individuals, and through that coordination, we can probably find efficiencies that would make that possible to have an effective plan in place.
Thank you, Candidate Kelly. Candidate Dixit, finally to you. I'm happy to repeat it if you'd like. Okay. If elected to City Council, what specific efforts would you support to advance community resilience to climate-related hazards such as extreme heat and wildfire smoke? And would you support funding for climate resilience efforts such as community resilience hubs?
Definitely. Resilience hubs are something that we need to be investing in as a city. We know that climate change is not going anywhere, right? And we also know we can't turn back the clock and make us, somehow the perfect environment again, So things have permanently changed, so we need to adapt and make sure that our city can continue to grow, we can continue to be sustainable to the folks who do live here. So there's more than just resiliency hubs, like Zach said. We need to be being advocates for progressive revenue. At the city, you only really have payroll tax and property taxes and things like that, or sales tax, which we know is a big burden on folks who are living paycheck to paycheck, who have the lowest incomes in our city. So that's not equitable, right? So we need to make sure people are paying their fair share. If we're all experiencing climate change, that needs to be an expectation. So making sure Governor Ferguson knows that Eastern Spokane is for progressive revenue is huge. And then also doing things that make our city just more resilient in general. So making sure that we are, doing tree canopies, as was said earlier, but also doing upzoning. So we're building up, not out, because sprawl totally, contributes to exacerbated climate change impacts. Making sure that what we're building is actually good. So it has things like AC, it has things like heat. There's this expectation or this idea that affordable housing is frankly shitty. And that shouldn't be the expectation, right? Because then those people are the ones who are being predominantly impacted by these crises, which includes District 1. So like was said earlier, downtown is in District 1, mostly just buildings and asphalt. There are creative solutions as well. You can paint asphalt really pretty colors, and it actually helps from the heat being absorbed by the asphalt. So it's both art in the city, and it's also something that helps with the climate.
Thank you, candidates.
Hello, candidates. Thank you for being with us tonight. Hello, candidates. I'd like to start with a question related to climate change and water use. On average, Spokane County residents consume a shocking 177 gallons of water per day, putting our consumption in the top of communities in the United States. In fact, according to the U.S. Geological Survey, 177 gallons is more than twice the national average, which is estimated to be around 82 gallons of water per day. Also troubling is the health of the Spokane River. This summer, perhaps for the first time in history, a portion of the Spokane River ran dry. The city of Spokane is talking about having to make city wells deeper to account for drops in the aquifer levels. Spokane Valley may have to do the same at some point. Candidates, please outline the most important steps that Spokane and Spokane Valley can undertake in order to lessen its water consumption footprint reduce negative impacts to Spokane River flows, and make our Spokane River climate resilient into the next generation. Candidate Savage, first to you this time. If elected, what specific policies would you support to regulate or incentivize the conservation of water? You have 2 minutes.
So, being a former commissioner on the Water Spokane Conservancy Board, I've learned a lot about how we do water rights here in Spokane. We really need to reform and talk to Washington Department of Ecology on how it is really bad how we incentivize more water usage on a lot of our farms. If you do not use 5,000 gallons per day on your farm continuously for a month, you lose your water right. So we need to make sure that we're reforming that to make sure that we're incentivizing people to conserve water and not use it to the point where it's like, oh, I just want to use it to make sure that I don't lose this right. Because water rights here in Spokane, I don't know if you know or not, but it is like gold. When you have one, it is important. It allows you to do what you need to on your land. It makes you able to access utilities. So we need to make sure we are reforming that, talking to the Washington Department of Ecology, and making sure we're reforming that to make sure that we're not overusing our water. Because we are sitting on the Spokane-Rathdrum Prairie Aquifer. It is a finite amount of water that we do have. Yes, it is a big aquifer, but we need to make sure that we are actually having good water conserving policies. That means that we need to have what we have now, which is a water ordinance in Spokane, but it's not good because we don't have coinciding agreements with our surrounding municipalities who share the same water source. We really need to make sure that we're talking with them, collaborating with them, and making the same policy so not just one person is conserving their water and another person in another part of the state in Idaho is using more because they're at a different part of the aquifer. So we need to make sure that we're doing a regional collaborative effort in addressing our water concerns.
So just to clarify, the ordinance and as I understand it from that's passed by Spokane City Council doesn't necessarily have any strong enforcement mechanisms. Would you be in favor of actually strengthening it along with working with regional partners to make sure they did the same, or do you think it's appropriate as it is now?
I don't think it's appropriate as is now because there's a lot of people, when I do doorbelling, there's a lot of people who are using water during those times they're not supposed to. So with no enforcement capability, there is no reason why we need to have this law. And not only that, but I think it's reprehensible that the city of Spokane is exempt from these water laws and everyone else needs to be a part of it. So it's rules for thee, not for me, and we need to change that. But we need to make sure that we're having a good enforcement capability, because if you have a law with no enforcement capability, it's not really a law.
Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you, Candidate Savage. Candidate Zabone, same question to you. If elected, what specific policies would you support to regulate or incentivize the conservation of water? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm glad my opponent supports the law that I passed and think that it's important that we continue to strengthen that. As we passed that law, we did talk about that there is a mechanism in there to enforce and give citations and give people tickets. Unfortunately, that is from the administrative side of the mayor's side to choose to implement that or not. And that is something that I think that we should be talking about and implementing to strengthen it. As that alone will not address our issues in our community, especially around the Spokane River. We know, and from the research that showed that the snowpack is a major part of that, that this is likely to continue to happen as we're impacted by climate change. We absolutely need advocacy from the state level to go to Idaho and demand water rights for our Spokane River. But we also need to talk about what things that are in the city's control, and that's land use. The number one thing that we can do is make sure that we have infill development, support bus rapid transit and other transit. Unfortunately, my opponent believes that we should have more sprawl in our community. He believes that we should have more annexation and build more single-family zones, and that's going to have a bigger impact in our community because we have to extend more water usage, more sewer and water, and that cost is then bared by the ratepayer too. And so I've supported eliminating parking requirements in our city that gets rid of our car dependency. I've supported eliminating single-family zoning throughout the entire city so that we can have this type of infill development, subsidized development that is more focused on multifamily zoning, housing, and more density, because that's the type of development that will build a better and stronger city that can make us a leader, which we are, a national leader on housing reform in our country. And so those are the types of development that we want to keep supporting and move forward and not move backward. Thanks.
Candidate Zapone, and Candidate Savage, you'll have a closing statement if you want to. People can address each other in the closing statements if they'd like. Just to clarify further in terms of water, I hear you talking about zoning and planning, and we're doing comprehensive planning changes right now. Would you support changing rates? Right now, the rates are still relatively low, and some people consider changing water rates the third rail of Spokane politics. So would you support changing rates for maybe those who are at the highest tiers of water consumption? Why or why not?
Yeah, I think that is something that we've been talked about and have done an update to and still need to do again. It absolutely has to be tier-based. We don't want to have water use be evenly distributed to people who are using a normal amount for their household. But those people that have the largest lawns, the biggest pools that are using the most on our system, we've all probably seen the graphs about how much our water usage goes up over the summer. And so we want to target that in a tiered way. And I've been supportive and have expressed support for that in the past.
Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you, Candidate Zabon. Candidate Pokel, same question to you. I'm happy to repeat it if you like.
Yeah, will you please?
If elected, what specific policies would you support to regulate or incentivize the conservation of water?
Yeah, I think there's two main things that I think can help. One is reaching out to our regional partners, right? Reaching out to the city of Post Falls, reaching out to all of the jurisdictions along the river to come together, like we did recently when we passed our aquifer bill that just was on the ballot. What's funny about that in particular is when I was a kid in Central Valley School District in the Valley, we actually had somebody come to our school that he was singing songs about the aquifer and, talking about conservation and recycling. And that actually stuck with me. And that program was paid for by those same funds. That's the other half, I think, that is really going to make a difference is education and outreach. I think going into schools is an excellent way to do that, but I think going into the public in general is also a dire need. I think that it's not just kids, although that does help, obviously. It worked on me, right? But I think adults, too, just need to know. I had no idea before tonight that we were in the very top of water consumption in the nation. That's just not a thing that I think many people are aware of, and simply knowing those things can help reduce consumption.
So just to clarify, would you advocate and fund additional education, or are you saying what's provided by the Aquifer Protection Area is sufficient to do the education that's needed?
I think, yeah, working with local schools to help augment those education funds is going to be something that can be helpful. As far as funding goes, again, I'm all for that if we can find the budget for it, absolutely.
Thank you, Candidate Pokel. Candidate Kelly, same question to you. If elected, what specific policies would you support to regulate or incentivize the conservation of water?
Well, I think there's two primary approaches. I think the first it would be to reach out to the largest water consumers and have discussions about how we can do additional conservation. Agriculture is big in this area, and of course they're using a lot of water. And so cooperation needs to be done to keep that inexpensive for them, but also we can make sure that it's being done responsibly. So it's sort of a question of education, has already been touched on. The other part is, again, just raising the awareness. I don't think that in our community there's probably a lot of discussion because there's not a lot of awareness, or therefore there is not a lot of awareness. And so reaching out through the utilities and reminding people of the situation and exactly where we stand. I remember when I was young, the utilities would provide you free if you wanted shower heads that were low flow. They would give you water meters that you could place when you're watering your lawn or even in the shower to let you know, hey, this is the amount of water you're using. And so when I think those things are provided, that people's awareness becomes better, and that they can adjust their behavior. Because we can have all the policies we want, but they're very difficult to enforce, and so you're not really going to have a lot of impact. It really comes down to individual behavior, and that's only going to change if we educate people on that. So schools are good, reaching out again through the utilities are good, and we can have the state's involvement as well, Department of Ecology or other people, to say, hey, this is something that we should be aware of.
Thank you, candidate Kelly. Another candidate mentioned that we have a summer peak due to watering lawns, and there are strong feelings that community members have about green lawns. In the city of Spokane, there's a program to incentivize homeowners to shift away from water-intensive grasses to Spokanescape, they call it. And to my knowledge, the Valley doesn't yet have a program like that. Would that be a program specifically that you would support?
Well, I definitely support all kinds of different ideas. I mean, there's no reason why we can't have a whole collection of possible solutions presented. Now, I think the real question is who's in the best position to do that? Is that government, or is that community organizations? And so it's really the discussion I feel we need to have. But having additional possibilities or options, like you're suggesting.
Do you have a preference between those two?
Well, I operate under the theory that government tends to be inefficient. If there's a way to have that done more from either a volunteer or private sector approach, I would definitely prefer that. But, tough crowd. But, government has its role. Government needs to facilitate and motivate, but I don't know that government necessarily needs to be one to execute these solutions.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, candidate Kelly. Candidate Dixit, same question to you. I'm happy to repeat it if you like.
I think I got it, but you can call me out if I forget any part. So the river and the aquifer are two lifelines here in Spokane, and that has been true since yes, thank you. Exactly. So we know that, when folks first colonized this area, displaced people who knew how to be sustainable with the river practice, and that is something that obviously has been lost through capitalism and through all these other things. So it's really important that we acknowledge that history, and it's also really important to note that I think, as candidate Savage said, the city is a huge perpetrator of going against our own policies. So I don't know how many of you have biked through Riverfront Park and have seen the sprinkler system going on. It's 2 p.m. It's really frustrating. And so Spokane Parks needs to make sure that it is abiding by these rules. And if you didn't know, Spokane Parks also has 4 golf courses or something. So it's also a lot of water usage. And that is something that we need to address. And a big part of the use isn't necessarily indoor use, but it's outdoor use. So really doing that education piece is huge. But I think also, based on the primary ballot vote, a lot of people do know that the aquifer is really important. But I think driving home that it is a finite resource is also really important, because I think that's hard for us to comprehend, even for myself, of how is that possible. So I think just making sure people understand just how scarce of a resource it is. And then, yes, you shouted out Spokanescape, but love that the city has been doing that. I'm Spokanescaping my house right now. It's covered in cardboard. But making sure that people know that these are services that our city has and will walk you through it, and you don't have to do it alone, is really huge.
Just to clarify, are there any specific programs that you would, new programs that you would suggest to incentivize or regulate water use or conservation?
Yeah, I'd want to look at, who is spending or who is using the most water, because we'd want to make sure that enforcement isn't punitive and harming folks who can't afford to pay a fee or a ticket. So I think making sure that it's not being disproportionately impacting the vulnerable. But yes, enforcement is important.
Thank you, candidate Dixit. Candidate Tellis, finally to you. If elected, what specific policies would you support to regulate or incentivize the conservation of water?
Well, first of all, I want to say I'm an avid boater. I'm a kayaker, I'm a rafter. It was pretty shocking in August when we didn't have a river, at least parts of it. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done on education. We need to educate people that the aquifer and the river are related, and we have one will have effects on the other one. As far as the drought resistance ordinance, we need to start enforcing it. I am not going to say we need to blanket enforce it. I think we need to start with we need to start with commercial businesses as well as the highest users. And the city needs to lead by example. I know for a fact that people are confused about what the water regulations are because the city is not actually following through on that. So we need to make sure that we're addressing irrigation issues, making sure that we are conserving as a city as much as possible. And then I would suggest that we start with an education first. I don't think we should cite anyone or penalize them for the first offense. And I do think that's the opportunity to say, here's your citation, this is the actual code, this is when you're allowed to water, this is when you're not, these are the different levels. And, but after that, I do believe we need to start penalizing. It's the only way to get people to change.
Thank you, candidate Tellis, and thank you, candidates.
My understanding is that both Spokane and Spokane Valley are in the process of developing updated 20-year comprehensive plans that will, for the first time, include climate elements related to reducing climate pollution emissions and improving resilience. From my perspective, this is really exciting. If you are elected to office, these plans are likely to come to you for consideration. So my question to you is, if elected to City Council, what specific policies would you recommend be included in these 20-year comprehensive plans to help reduce climate pollution emissions and improve climate resilience? Candidate Zappone, the first question goes to you this time. If elected to City Council, what specific policies would you recommend be included in the Spokane 20-year comprehensive plan to specifically help reduce climate pollution emissions and improve climate resilience? You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, really quick. I wanted to address the city leading by example and just remind everyone that the parks have an old, outdated infrastructure that requires them to water during the day because it's manual labor. But on the ballot this fall is an update to the parks levy that would change that so the city can fund that and make that change. So I just want to make sure that everyone knows that that is one of those issues that we can make that change and lead by example, but it's up to voters to make sure that we're able to implement that change. To follow up on the comprehensive plan, the city of Spokane is adopting our comprehensive plan next year, and it is a really exciting time that it plans for our future. And we have been working with consultants and our planning team about how to plan and implement those changes for the comprehensive plan. And every day at the dais, when we're having those conversations, we have council members who are actively trying to undermine the recommendations and policies and direction of that and saying that this is something that we shouldn't be prioritizing. It shouldn't be a thing that the city's looking at. I addressed this earlier, but I think one of the biggest and most important things that we can do is around our land use. And how do we build a city that has that infill development, the infrastructure, to make a less dependency on development? If we are planning for growth outside our city, we have to then start planning for water towers outside our cities, pump stations outside our city. All those things are costly and have more water use, more congestion, more irrigation. We also need to be investing in public transit. And as a board member of STA, I've been a big proponent of making transit more accessible and more affordable to more people. And just this year, we were able to implement a policy of an opportunity fare that will be rolling out this fall that will be eligible for low-income fare, people who are disadvantaged to get the accessibility for ridership. And we just heard today from the CEO that this first of the month is the highest ridership, and that's because people can't afford to ride it and they get their paycheck. So we need to make sure that people can afford all month long and not just on the first of the month.
Thank you, Candidate Zappone. Candidate Pokel, same question to you. If elected to City Council, what specific policies would you recommend be included in the Spokane 20-year comprehensive plan to specifically help reduce climate pollution emissions and improve climate resilience?
Yeah, I think there's like two things here, right? One, the first thing is that I don't claim to be a public policy expert on climate, but I do know that the city of Spokane Valley has employees that work very hard to come up with these plans and make recommendations for what they think is the right direction to go. They also will employ consultants to help make those decisions. And like I said at the outset, I'm someone who tends to listen to experts. When a team of experts says, hey, here's probably the best path forward. I'm going to look at that path and probably most likely agree with that, right? I may ask questions. I may want to, dive a little deeper and ask a couple of whys, but when it comes down to it, I'm going to follow the experts in their field. So that's one half. I think the other half of that is something similar to what Mr. Zapone just said. With infill. In Spokane Valley, we have a lot of space. There are still a lot of areas where it's just vacant land waiting to be developed. And rather than, contributing to that urban sprawl, I think finding those places and developing those and, getting higher density, more than just single-family homes. We've got a lot of those in Spokane Valley. Finding other solutions. I really like, what Kendall Yards is like. I think that's an awesome place, right? Finding that higher density, that mixing commercial with the residential, I think that can really work. And I think it could really work for Spokane Valley.
Candidate Pokel, just to clarify, I get the idea of following the advice of experts right now. Like a lot of jurisdictions, the Spokane Valley is hiring consultants through a grant from Commerce to make recommendations. But right now, the city of Spokane Valley doesn't have a plan for how it would achieve these emission reductions, for example. Like the city of Spokane does, the community worked on that over a long period of time, but the valley and the county don't yet have those plans. If community members came to you and said we should, as the valley, have a plan for how to reduce our emissions, would you support that effort?
100%, yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Thank you, Candidate Pokel. Candidate Kelly, same question to you. If elected to City Council, what specific policies would you recommend be included in Spokane's 20-year comprehensive plan to specifically help reduce climate pollution emissions and improve climate resilience?
Well, I think my answer is going to be a little bit of a mix of the ones we've already heard. So interestingly, I currently sit on the Spokane Valley Planning Commission, and this is our big task over the next year and a half, is to develop these updates to our comprehensive plan. As Zach indicated, the majority of the work is being done by outside consultants, and they're looking around the state and probably other places and looking at things that are already working, such as the policies that Spokane has. So we're excited to see what they're going to propose. Some of the things that I've put forth in my vision that's been since the beginning of my campaign is a couple of things. One, I'd like to see greater development around the transportation hubs that we already have. We have quite a bit of space along the Sprague corridor, especially between Argonne and the freeway. And as was indicated, I'd love to see some sort of European-style mix where you have residential over retail, and you can have units that are, maybe akin to condominiums that people can actually own. So this would provide not only some low-income, entry-level housing, but it would be a good use of our space where we can build up a little bit right there on, the 5 lanes of Appleway and Sprague. If people can get close to the freeway, we can bring in they're very close to transportation hubs. So we can accomplish a lot by some wise and judicious planning. And so other than that, we're just going to have a lot of public input. There's going to be a number of public hearings, and so we're going to get the chance to hear the ideas from the public and integrate those into the plan as appropriate. But really what I want to do is make sure that we can retain as much local control as possible and decide how we develop as a community.
Thank you, Candidate Kelly. Just to clarify, if one of the recommendations was to greatly expand the urban growth area, would you be in support of that as well?
Well, as you probably know, we're not allowed to expand that unless we can prove that our current boundary does not accommodate the growth that's anticipated, and that's currently under review. We're not actually sure if we are going to be forced to expand or not. That evaluation is going on now. If we look like we need to expand, that comes with obvious problems. As has been pointed out, you have to expand infrastructure. And the areas that are around Spokane Valley right now, they've already done a study, and they divided up into, I think, 15 different zones. And only one of those zones would actually bring financial benefit to the city. Everything else, by annexing it, would actually be a net drain on our resources. So from that standpoint alone, it would probably not be the first option that I would look to.
Thanks for clarifying.
Thank you, Candidate Kelly. Candidate Dixit, same question to you. Do you want me to repeat it?
I think I got it. Yeah, I think it's really great that our comprehensive plan is now including climate in all of its sections. But we also know that we've had the Sustainability Action Plan here in Spokane. So I think originally it was 2009, and then it was updated in 2021. So that's something that the city has been doing. So I think the city of Spokane is making strides in this way. So this is just another step to make sure the comprehensive plan for the next 20 years is also following suit of what those experts had recommended. In terms of policy, would want us to upzone, making sure we're able to build up, limiting sprawl, infill, like Zach said, mixed use, making sure people have all their needs in one place so they don't have to travel far, and making sure we have transit-oriented development. So that would be, right now we have an example here in Logan because of the city line, but making sure that we're able to invest in that way and making sure people have all the things that they need next to transit. And this week is the week without driving, and so I think this week has been a really great example for those of you who have been participating, as have I. You notice, randomly a bike lane will disappear mid-street, and you're like, well, that's good to know. Or places where you want to go, but the bus route might not be as direct as you'd like it to be. So I think when we're talking about transit as well, making sure it's both free and fast, because a lot of the times I'll just choose to bike because it's much faster than taking the bus. And I think we are able to do free bus fare because I think fares are only count for 6% of SDA's budget. So I think that is something that we could do because we know more people will use it if they don't have to pay for using the bus. Yeah, so I think all of those things are really important, and I really want us to invest in making sure Spokane is not just following, but leading in this regard.
Thank you, Candidate Dixit. Candidate Tellis, same question to you. I'd be happy to repeat it.
Would you repeat it just
Yeah.
because I want to make sure I have all of the
Yeah.
elements?
If elected to City Council, what specific policies would you recommend be included in Spokane's 20-year comprehensive plan to specifically help reduce climate pollution emissions and improve climate resilience?
So we know, based on science, that most of our greenhouse gas emissions come from buildings, heating and cooling, and transportation. So we need to address both of those. And one of the things we can do is prioritize public transit, making sure that we are building wherever we have public transit. And now is the time, as the potential representative for District 2, that I should talk to you about what is lacking in my district. There are entire parts of Latah Valley, Eagle Ridge, Grandview Thorpe, and the West Hills that do not have public transportation at all. I am opposed to increasing any growth management boundary, while we cannot already handle the infrastructure that we currently have in place. We need to have more sidewalks, we need to have more resiliency, we need to have a fire station that can actually deal with the increased fire danger. Most of the areas that I just talked about, they are currently operating with a single family, operating out of a single family home that's been converted, and that is their fire station. And we know, because of impacts of climate change and the increase of wildfire, it's our new reality. It's only going to happen more and more. And so I would suggest that we do the things that the city is already doing. We continue on. We focus on infill. We focus on building around public transit. We increase public transit where we have already built. And we make it free and fast as much as possible.
Thank you, Candidate Tellis. Candidate Savage, finally to you. If elected to City Council, what specific policies would you recommend be included in Spokane's 20-year comprehensive plan to specifically help reduce climate pollution emissions and improve climate resilience?
So what we can do is do what I said beforehand, which is needs to be regional collaboration with our municipal partners. It does not make sense if we're doing our own thing and all the other surrounding municipalities are doing their own. So we need to make sure that we are working in one concerted effort, that if we make policies, that we are all on the same page. Because again, if we're all going in different directions, it's just going to be trying to corral cats, and that doesn't work out. We also need to plant more trees because there's a lot of concrete downtown that really needs to be shaded right now. There's a lot of people that try to come downtown, and it's very hard and difficult because they are just not being able to come through all the heat domes and all the heat that we've had, especially this summer. We also need to make sure that we have competent bike and actual clear bike networks. Right now, we have a patchwork of bike networks that isn't really working for anyone. As many candidates have said beforehand, they kind of just go one way and then lead to nowhere, and then it just leaves you in the middle of an intersection, and that's not good. We need to talk to more of our bicyclists who know and are experts on what's going on here to make sure we are making the right networks if we have the money for it. That's another thing I do want to bring up. I know it's probably not going to be happy to hear about this, but we're in our $13 million deficit. We need to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible and make sure that we have the right resources so that we can implement these policies fully and not just half-wise, because if we do it half, it's not going to go well. We're just going to have half a bike network. We also need to work on our water conservation. We really, because it looks like that we are going to have a finite amount of water in our aquifer, and we need to make sure that we are being good stewards of that finite amount of water.
Thank you, Kennedy. So just to clarify on the idea of regional collaboration, which is a really good and always needed. It's always a good idea. But it can also potentially become a reason not to do something if you have partners who aren't interested in partnering. So, if we don't have partners who are wanting and willing to do this work with us, then would you support doing what we can with the resources we have?
Yes, because then we can be a leader for the rest of the people and show what needs to be done in the right manner.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you, candidates.
On this last question on climate elements of the comprehensive planning, it sounds wonky, and a lot of you maybe haven't actually heard about this. I just wanted to briefly mention that as some of our candidates mentioned, this is ongoing for the next year and a half in Spokane County, City of Spokane, Spokane Valley. Are all doing this right now. It's all we have opportunities for all of you to continue to participate in and help shape what this 20-year plan is going to look like. And so I'd encourage you to do a little Googling and search, get on their email lists. There's tons of great opportunities to participate as a citizen in forming those plans, because they're not done yet. They're right in the most important part right now. Both the city and the counties are working on policy development right now. And so when you see a survey, answer it, and go to community forums when invited. With that, I'd like to turn to closing statements. Each candidate has been given the opportunity to have a 90-second closing statement, and to continue down the line, I think we have candidate Pukel, who can begin. You have 90 seconds if you'd like to make any concluding remarks.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say thank you, for giving me the opportunity to come speak with you today. As someone who grew up in the valley, fishing in the river as a kid, or going out to Turnbull with my grandma and planting trees out there. Our environment here is super important to me, and it means a lot, right? Growing up here and living here is just something that it means a lot to me. So taking care of it is definitely one of my priorities, and always has been. I don't think that we would be as cool of a place to live without our natural environment. So I want to make sure that we give the same opportunities to future generations that I had as a kid growing up. So thank you for inviting me to speak, and it was a pleasure.
Well, just go ahead and go down the line.
Yeah, so we have, like I said earlier, we have great communities here, Spokane and Spokane Valley, lots of natural resources. And I think that, we want to continue to make sure that these amenities are available for our neighbors to come and for our children, our grandchildren. We're going to have growth, and we want to attract people to our community that are going to share our values and help preserve that. And maintaining our parks and keeping our environment clean, our water clean, our air clean, our roads repaired are all important in order to make sure that we draw the type of stable community member that we want, that's going to be a homeowner and can continue to contribute. I feel that that position on the council is important, because we do set policies, we do set the tone, and we can make sure that we communicate with the public about how important focusing on those environment and those types of topics are. And so I'm excited to be a part of that, and regardless of what happens, I know you'll continue to do your work here, which is very important, like I said, to continue to raise the awareness. Thank you.
Thank you all for this forum and this opportunity to speak to you about these pressing issues. Oftentimes people shy away from talking about climate change because of the existential dread. But I think gathering like this is really important because it shows that a lot can be done at the local level. So spaces like this really give me hope. So thank you all for being here. Of course, I have to point out the fact that my opponent is not here tonight and rarely speaks about climate change. Unfortunately, the crisis doesn't just go away if you ignore it or bury your head in the sand, which is why I am running for District 1. My efforts in building more sustainable practices in my personal life, like prioritizing riding my bike or reducing waste throughout the campaign or doing the water-wise yard, all of those things are skills and passions that I want to bring in a leadership position on council. We deserve a council member who is going to show up, be accessible, and be accountable to the people. This grassroots campaign has been a great example of what community power looks like, and I can't wait to be your next councilwoman bringing progress for the people, not just the powerful. You can learn more about our campaign at sarahforspokane.com, and I'll stick around after to chat with anyone who wants to get involved.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for having me here and thanks for doing the important work. Shout out to 350 Spokane and the River Keeper over there for such amazing work, and in Northwest, I'm sure I'm missing people, and the League of Women Voters. But I think really part of this is going to be raising awareness, and the work you do is so important. I think it's important that we elect leaders who listen to the scientists and listen to the experts. They are the ones who truly understand the best course forward, and this is an existential threat, one that that worries me quite a bit as a mother, and I want to make sure that my children and their children have the same benefits of growing up in the wilderness that I did. And we also need to address equity issues. There are so many people, we didn't talk about the vulnerable populations too much, but generally speaking, lower income, people of color, people with health illnesses, those are the vulnerable people, and we need to address this with an equity lens. We need to make sure that they can survive and they can live in addressing the new realities of our planet. So I really appreciate all the education that Gonzaga does, especially with Smoke Ready Spokane. It's an excellent program, and and I just want to thank you all for your work. And say, I too regret that my opponent is not here, as it's a very important issue.
Well, thank you all for being here this evening. I really appreciate you taking time out of your night to come and talk and hear about some of the candidates and what their opinions are regarding the City Council. I just want to reiterate that this is a great city. I love this city, and that's why over the past 10 years I planted 100 trees. I've worked with other people down in California universities to make sure that we are trying to help out with our monarch populations, as well as trying to plant as many milkweed native seeds here in Spokane to help with our pollinator populations. I really, truly love the city, and we got to make sure that we are making sure that we have competent policies. Now, I'd like to bring to everyone's attention that I would take everything with a grain of salt that my opponent has said, because when it comes to utility rates, he's actually being donated and supported by Vista Utilities. So with him trying to say that he's going to raise rates, it seems a bit improper and a bit odd that he would be actually advocating for that from one of his major contributors. So please take that into account and make sure that you are voting for the right person that is going to tell you the truth and be straight up with you. That is my promise to you all, is I'm going to be straight up with you, I'm going to tell you the truth, and I will be here for you to make sure that I am talking to you even if we have opposing viewpoints, because that is what the City Council is supposed to be. We're supposed to be listening to you, the constituents, and not going up there with our own personal agenda, but going up there with the will of the people, which is you all. So thank you all this evening for being here.
Yeah, I also want to thank all the partners that co-hosted this and the students that put on the forum too. Thank you, and everyone who showed up here. Just to address really quick, Avista City Council doesn't actually have any authority over Avista. What we do have a lot of authority over is development in our city, and my opponent's being supported by Larry Stone, who's a car-centric developer, and then realtors who want to expand and don't want to constrict the UGA or urban growth development. And so you should ask yourself why Larry Stone's spending $75,000 in this election, and Alvin Wolf is spending $100,000 in this election because they expect some results. So overall, though, we need to address the things that are impacting our community right now, and that is the future of our community and the vision we want for our community. And I've been on council delivering results to address our climate change and the climate resiliency that we have right now. I'm glad my opponent supports the policies that I've implemented, from water rates to, not water rates, from water conservation to bike lanes, infill development, bus and rapid transit, and low-income transit. Those are all the things that are investments for our future. I do want to appreciate that my opponent is here. There's not very many conservatives from the other side that come here, and that there's a lot of areas that we can work together to come together as a community and believe in that vision. I'm running for office because I want to keep fighting for working and middle-class families and make sure that we can deliver results for those people. So thank you.
Thank you so much, candidates, and thank all of you. For the last 7 years, we've held this event with the idea being that this is an important issue, and local voters deserve to hear from the candidates what they think. For a long time, you could run for office without ever having to ever talk about the climate change, and I really credit the candidates who are here today for being willing to talk about this issue. The ballots are coming out very soon. One of the tables that we have here is a League of Women Voters. I'm told that they can sign you up to consider registering to vote in the election that's going to take place very shortly. So make sure to look for those ballots if you are a registered voter, and to make sure to submit it. By way of conclusion, I'd like to remember someone who passed away today. Many of you might have heard that Dr. Jane Goodall passed away today at the age of 91. Dr. Goodall is well known for her work on evolutionary next of kin, the chimpanzees of Gombe in Tanzania. Dr. Goodall is rightly credited with one of the first documented discoveries of a non-human animal creating and using tools. She demonstrated that, contrary to what was believed at the time, that humans are not utterly unique and separate from the rest of creation. This is, I believe, a lesson that we've yet to fully internalize as a species. Humans, really, we are amazing, but we're not separate from nature, and we're not above it. We are exemplifications of the amazing processes of evolution, not some grand exception to them. Dr. Goodall spent much of the rest of her career trying to motivate people to do more for the people and the animals in their communities. As she noted in her 1999 memoir, Reason for Hope, each of us matters, has a role to play, and makes a difference. Each one of us must take responsibility for our own lives, and above all, respect and love for living things around us, especially each other. And so, thank you all for being here. Let's suspend our rules of not judgment, keep those rules of engagement, and thank the candidates for being here tonight. Let's thank Caitlin for doing such a good job of keeping track of time. Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you to the students and staff of the Institute, and to all of our co-hosts and co-sponsors. Please visit them at their tables. Make their time tonight worthwhile by visiting their tables, signing up, sending them some money. And let's finally thank our student moderators for their work tonight. Thank you so much for attending, and please don't forget the climate when you vote. Good night.